Public school versus private school. I have been asked this question so many times. Which is a better option for your child? Let's talk about it. First, let me preface it by saying this. Every child is different. Every family's needs are different. So you have to do what's best for you. Weigh out the options according to your needs and your child's needs. And I'm going to throw you a curveball opinion at the end. I'm not going to sugarcoat my opinions. Just because I'm an educator, I'm not going to cover up for the education system. Because y'all, it is broken. Public school has a lot of great things to offer. If your child has any kind of a special need, you're going to get a little bit more accommodation in a public school. You might get the use of an aide, special classes, IEPs, 504 plan. Most times in private school, those are not available. However, in private school, you're going to have smaller class sizes, so they get a little bit more specialized attention. Academics are significantly higher in private school. I was just talking with a friend of mine who teaches 4th grade at public school. She was talking about how frustrated she is. She's not able to teach to the children's strengths or to their weaknesses. She's forced to teach to the test. Children in her class are struggling in different areas. She would like to help. She's not able to because she has to stay on task and teach these children to pass that test. I have very strong opinions about teaching to the test. They're not positive. We are putting children into an academic box, and if they don't fit, I'm calling them a failure. Schools want more funding, so they want the children to pass that test. The illiteracy rate in the United States has absolutely skyrocketed. We're pushing children all the way through the academic system to high school, and they can barely read. I don't know about districts in your area. The districts in our area have removed the ability of a teacher to hold them back. So if a child can't read, they still get pushed on to the next grade. This is what my friend said. She was helping a student who was struggling. The little girl was not putting in a lot of effort. And my friend was encouraging her, and she's like, "Sweetie, you want to do better." This was the little girl's response. "You can't fail me." She knows she can't be failed, so she is not going to put in any effort. These are the academic standards that we're holding. Y'all. Let's talk about private school. You're not going to have any children that don't know how to read. Academics are really pushed. Both of my children went to private school until 8th grade, and they went to public high school. The academics were off the chart. However, they pushed those kids so hard. And honestly, in hindsight, I regret it. I regret how hard they were pushed. It robs them of their childhood. They're under so much stress. It's not worth it. I'm sorry, y'all. It's going to feel like breaking the educator code by saying this, but the majority of what's being taught in schools is worthless information. It's stuff that children are never going to use. So yes, the academic standard is higher, but at what cost? We are asking children to be in a seat for 8 hours a day, with almost no breaks, almost no recess. Their bodies aren't moving. They're under so much stress. Yet we expect them to perform. And then the private school kids come home and they have hours of homework. No. I know, that sounds like I'm being extremely disparaging on both public and private. They both have good things to offer. Neither one is perfect. You have to do what you think fits your family best. But here's my opinion. If my children were younger and I had to put them in the school system again, I wouldn't choose either. I would homeschool them. I know, it's shocking, right? But being in the education system for so long, seeing how far we have fallen, I wouldn't put them in it. I would want to be in control of what my children are learning. How much time they get to devote to academics and how much time they get to devote to just free play, moving their body, being active, learning skills that are actually useful. I wasn't in a situation when my children were younger that I was able to homeschool them. I wanted to, but we needed the extra income. If you have the ability to homeschool your child, I would, because the United States education system, both public and private, is failing our children.
Hey y'all, welcome to another week of me homeschooling my kiddos. So I received so many questions on why we decided to switch to homeschool, and I figured I would provide a few of the main reasons. Honestly, homeschool has been on my mind ever since the pandemic. During Drew's entire kindergarten school year, she did online learning, and she actually learned a lot. And that opened our minds to homeschooling full time. Our kids' safety is our number one priority. With all that is going on in the schools today, our main worry was their safety. Having them home, we know they're in a safe and loving environment, both mentally and physically. Right now, we are blessed to work from home with a flexible schedule. So why not take advantage? We wanted to be able to provide our kids with a personalized one-on-one learning experience. At home, the kids can take breaks as needed and learn at their own pace. We want to be in control of what and how our children learn. We also wanted to be able to limit the amount of negative influence that they may be exposed to at traditional school. Being home, we're able to protect our kids from negative peer pressure, bullying, and overall their mental health. Lastly, we wanted the ability to travel freely and see the world with our kids. And now school can take place anytime, anywhere. Homeschool is not a trend. It's definitely a sacrifice, and we want to spend as much time learning and growing with them as we can while we're able. The best part is we like it and they love it.
I'm a 27-year-old mom of two, and 2 years ago I was spending $69,000 a year on childcare. That was for a nanny working full-time and one daughter in half-day preschool. Now both of my kids are in school and the numbers have changed a little bit, so let's break it down. So my youngest daughter Evelyn is in preschool, she's in pre-K, and her tuition is $21,100 for the entire year, which is only like I don't know, 9 months of school. And then I have a daughter who's in first grade and her tuition is $26,800. The school day ends at 3 p.m., but I am a working mom. I own my own company and I have a lot of responsibility there. So I don't get home till around 5 p.m. every single day. And the cost for those extra 2 hours a day of childcare comes to be around $1,021 a month. But the school year obviously ends in May, so I don't have that extra $1,000 cost every single month. It's only for the 9 months of school, but the other 3 months it actually gets more expensive because then I have to have a full-time nanny home with my kids throughout the summer. And that comes out to be around $3,400 a month for those 3 months that school's out. So now let's add it all up. Tuition for both of my kids at this age, it goes up every single year. Right now for preschool and first grade, tuition is $47,900. For 9 months of after school care, that comes out to be $9,189. 3 months of a summer nanny comes out to be $10,320, bringing our grand total to $67,409, or on average $5,600 a month. But those are all the numbers. You guys have to let me know if you have any questions and I'll answer them in my next video. Love you.
All right, so I'm in these luxury groups on Facebook, right? And these female or women are sending their children to private schools because they think that they won't be exposed to anything. As someone, a dark-skinned girl who went to private schools, especially those private schools where I was the only black girl, those kids are worse than these black schools or these public schools that you think you're saving your children from. Not only do they have weed, but they have other drugs because they have access to money that a lot of us poor or black people don't have access to. So instead of trying to send your kids to private school because you think that they'll have like a better experience, just think about what you're sending them into. Please do. Because weed is not that bad compared to cocaine, sometimes heroin, all of these drugs that you don't want your kids to see. They will have access to it because these white people have money.
There's a conversation about private school versus public school happening in my comments, and I want to address this for a minute. Private school is an option for people who have the means or can access it with scholarship. Otherwise, it's not even an option. But even beyond that, there's things we need to discuss. My family is privileged in that we do have the means to utilize private school, but we can't. And here's why. As a parent of a neurodiverse child, it has been shown to me over and over again that they are not interested in children who do not fit the cookie cutter mold that they have established. Again, my experience as a parent of a neurodiverse child, as well as somebody who went to private school for 8 years, they want kids who draw between the lines. They are not interested in kids who are defiant, kids who question authority, kids who require extra time. I actually visited one of the best private schools in our region a few weeks ago and toured it. And I asked the person point blank, do you have any kids with autism who go to this school? And she responded point blank, no. I'm not surprised. It makes me really sad because genuinely that school and all the private schools who require their kids to stay within this cookie cutter mold, who only reach out to kids, who only want kids who will up their scoring and who will make them look good, they're the ones missing out on some of the most creative, kind, beautiful, caring, loving people out there. I have kids who don't draw within the lines. They draw their own lines. And that doesn't make them an imposition. That makes them incredible humans. The public schools in our area embrace that. They help us and each other navigate that. They don't tell my child, stay within the lines or get out. Private school is not an option for us, but you know what? I don't want them either.
I went to a private Catholic school from 1st grade to 6th grade. 7th grade, I started a public school. And it was because my parents just couldn't afford keeping me in private school anymore. That was around the time my dad had gotten laid off. I think this was like in 2008. But anyway, I think my biggest culture shock going from a private Catholic school into a public school was that my private school, it was like predominantly white people. Like, that's just, there was like no POC people. And then going into my public school, it was predominantly POC. There was just a few white kids. Other thing about it was that the staff and like the teachers, they just did not trust you. Like, they were like mean a little bit. They thought that like the kids were bad at the public school. They were just like treat them like differently, and like they didn't trust what we said. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to like just saying stuff and like having that like trust. At the public school, it was like they thought that we were all bad. I mean, I'm sure there were some kids that didn't follow the rules and they were doing some stuff they weren't supposed to be doing at the time. But like they just treated everybody like we were bad, and that's the one thing that like really stuck out to me, and I still remember it now. But I just want to know if anybody else had an experience similar to that.
I get asked this question a lot. Are private schools really that much better than public schools? Most private schools are really just public schools wearing lipstick. Hold on. I did not arrive at this conclusion on a whim, so hear me out. In many instances, private schools are just a smaller sized copy of the industrialized system from Prussia. There's still the super long, unnecessary school day of 7 hours. There's still the homework. In fact, in private schools, those kids get bogged down. Some may think the social environment is better in private schools than public, but you would get an equal amount of people saying no, it could be equally as toxic or more toxic. I saw even more academic performance anxiety in my private school students. And of course, in both types of schools, you have that unhealthy comparison among peers. This next one is a biggie for me. If you have a kid that doesn't fit in the box, maybe they are on an IEP, ADHD, some type of learning challenge, most private schools cannot adequately accommodate or have the staff or expertise to help in those particular areas. So not only do those kids have to struggle through that 7-hour school day, but then the parents have to hire outside help after school hours when honestly they should be doing what they love and are good at. Here's the biggie and the one that you've been waiting for. Let's talk about the academics. Many private schools, not all, but many, actually sell themselves on the fact that they only use accredited curriculum and only hire certified teachers. Well, isn't that what public schools are doing? I kid you not, I was there. Most curriculum is the same. Of course, there are those special schools that are practicing particular educational philosophies and such, but if we're honest, most private schools are not those. I'm not incredibly interested in a private school saying, hey, come over here. We're government approved. Because we all know how that's working out. But there are benefits. Parents have more power at private schools. That's a good thing. You can choose schools that do have particular philosophies or religious affiliations. A lot of parents want that. And the last one isn't really talked about a lot, but I have to be honest because I was in that world. Many people choose private schools for the prestige and connections. Love it or hate it, there it is. I'm not saying all private schools are bad, but please don't assume every private school is a huge step up.
When you look at the statistics of how much time kids are spending with their parents these days, it's like 35 minutes a day.
That's it?
When you remove bathing, making dinner, when you are face-to-face with your kid, bonding, doing an activity where you are interacting, that's an average of 35 minutes a day. The benefit of homeschooling is the opportunities and the freedom that you do have. I didn't have to finish all my classes by a certain period. I had 9 months. If I wanted to get everything done in 2 weeks, I could have. I had so much flexibility to do everything that I was interested in. I took art classes. I did gymnastics. I volunteered. And that was only because I had the time to do it. I was not in school until 3 p.m. I spent so much time with my family. My relationship with my mom is one of the things that I'm most proud of. I inherited a lot of her values because I spent so much quality time with her that she was the one who raised me, not a teacher. And I think that that is so important because
Let's go to the library and talk about how I received thousands of free dollars to homeschool my daughter. A resource many parents are unaware of are homeschool charters. Depending on your state, you can receive $2,000 to $4,000 per year to utilize for educational purposes. This school year, we paid for gymnastics, acting, field trips, supplies, memberships, and more. As a single mother, homeschool charter funds allow for experiences that I would not be able to provide myself. I always thought that homeschool was inaccessible to my family, and while it has its many challenges like childcare, scheduling, learning curves, I've managed to do this as a single working mother of 3. The experience is not that of a perfect homeschool aesthetic family, but we've made it our own. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to make this homeschool journey as accessible as possible and share all the resources that I have. God bless.
The most common question you get asked as a homeschool parent is, what about socialization? And I got to tell you, it's a great question because it is almost impossible to do it the way the public school system does. I mean, every single time my kids leave the house to go to, church or a sporting event or a festival or a parade or the theater or the movies, I got to remind them, hey, remember, only associate with people roughly within your same age group and make sure you're only talking when given permission or else you'll be punished. I mean, replicating that kind of model, which takes place nowhere else in society, it's tough.
No, it's not. I attended private school, and I also taught at both public and private schools in union and non-union states at middle, high school, and collegiate levels. Private school is not a better value. When I worked at a university, I had lower quality experiences with private school graduates. They just had been treated so special their whole lives, and they did not come into college super prepared. It was very rare for me to have an interaction with a private school student graduate who I was like, wow, you're prepared for life. Way to go. As a teacher at 3 different private institutions, I can tell you that private schools do not have certification requirements like public schools do. You can literally just be Sam's mom who has a degree in biology, and so you begin teaching AP biology. Like, do not do that, please. Funding is not what you think it is. You would imagine that just because families are paying thousands of dollars a year that you're going to get a high quality experience because of that. But what it works out to per student is actually less money, and it doesn't go as far because you are crowdsourcing it rather than working with public funding. Facilities are really low quality. I know from the outside it looks so cute and they've got these great pictures, and when you did your tour it was really nice. Having been somebody who did the tours, I can say for sure you're not seeing everything. Technology generally lags 2 to 5 years behind what public schools have access to, both for devices and for networks that they're on. Like, I can't tell you how many times I couldn't even teach because my Wi-Fi wouldn't connect. The curriculum is generally lower quality because it's just not state funded and state supported. Like, there's just less going on in terms of the rigor of the education. Like, I don't know how to explain to you that it's just not as good. If you have students who are good at sports at your private school, it's because they're also playing that sport on their own time in paid for clubs in addition to it. It's not because they have incredible facilities, and like, it's few and far between to see a athletics program or an arts program that is honestly thriving because the school is thriving. It's because those families are wealthy enough to support it outside school. And so then those Juilliard bound or those D1 bound people are already doing it privately. They're getting tutored. As a parent, as a human, as a teacher, my biggest objection to private school and why it's not a better value is because it's not a real representation of the real world. So you've got people who have the same funding as you, the same background as you. It's just like being like, and you're just in this little cesspool of non-growth and just producing the same type of people. When I think about your keyword here, value, I think about, is it delivering what it promises? And if you just look at the little quick fact sheets that are on the websites of these private schools, it talks about things like a low student to teacher ratio. And that's another one I love, because the reason they get to that ratio is not really because they have better class sizes. It's because all of their admin are also teaching like one class. So you consider every single adult in the building a teacher, and then you factor that against the student body, which is smaller because you're a private school. And then you get to come up with numbers like a 12-to-1 teacher ratio. So yeah, little Jalen might be in a Latin class with 6 other students, but then his math class might have 32 people in it. And that teacher does not have to accommodate for his ADHD. That teacher does not have to go at his pace. That teacher says, keep up if you can. And the Chromebook might not be working, and the Wi-Fi might not be connecting, and the textbook could be 10 years old, on and on and on and on. You paid for the uniform he's sitting in. You paid for the lunch that he has to buy because there's no lunchroom really that's affordable, and you drove him to school because there's no bus, and his sports also cost extra money, and there's fees and fees and fees. And oh, can you volunteer at the gala? Oh, what can you donate for this? Oh, we're fundraising for this. And then he does make it through, and he gets to college, and he finds out he's not as special as he was told all along.
Here are 5 reasons I don't want my kids in school. School is the biggest place for indoctrination. If you notice, schools look exactly like jails. The food, the buses, the walls, the windows, the floors, the way they make you sit, the way they make you walk in straight lines. Indoctrination. Creativity preservation. People often call kids weird. They have too much energy. But that is because they want you to sit still, sit in a classroom, do your work, keep your head down for 8 hours a day, which is what you would be doing if you worked a corporate job. Homeschool gives my kids the opportunity to continue to be creative. There are far too many hours in a school day. The overconsumption of other energies. Teachers, guidance counselors, janitors, principals, vice principals, all these different peoples in these schools, just like you and I, they have a bad day. And some of the time, those people are taking their bad days out on the kids. Protection. There's so much protection in homeschool. The school shootings and just issues with the school bus. Like, the amount of fear that I had with my daughter getting on the school bus was uncomfortable. So all in all, those are my reasons that I don't want my kids in public school, private school, any school. I am the school. I'm happy to control the narrative of both of my kids' day. I'm happy about how this decision has positively affected my family. And I'm just elated to have this position in life, and I just want to show my gratitude for my position. Thanks, y'all.
You know, I'm going to go back on this education rant, private versus public school, and because my older two were in private school, and the reason why, from my perspective, we placed our children in private school was morals, values, and stuff like that. They had more control over the influence, and then also an accelerated curriculum. But what I'm noticing in comparison to my older two are 19 and 17, and then my younger two are 7 and 10, what I'm noticing is they're moving further away from academic excellence to a more capitalistic mentality and indoctrination within the private sphere, and their stronghold for getting parents to place their children in private versus public schools is the exposure that their children will be subjected to being in the public sphere. But as a parent, like literally, do you know what curriculum is being taught within your private school if you have your child in a private school? Like, is it really an accelerated curriculum? And don't go based off of the state national comparative standards, because that's what I feel like they're doing, because that's what they did to me. I was looking at my daughter's MAP testing, and they were like, well, you know, she was like two points, I want to say, above the national standard. But comparatively to the state standard, she wasn't doing that well. And comparatively to the school standard, she wasn't doing that well. And it was like they were trying to gaslight me to believe, oh, she's doing fine. But my point is, make sure that your child is actually getting the accelerated education that you're paying for, one. And then two, you should absolutely not have to put your child in tutoring or any extra learning if they're actually getting the fundamentals within that school, which is what I was forced to believe. She kept, well, we have Thrive Tutoring, we have this and that and the third. My child has been at that school since she was 3 years old. There's no reason at all why she should be behind in any way. And if she was behind, if there was a learning deficit or a learning disability or anything like that, they should have been attuned to it and informed me, not me figuring it out. Because how many children are just like being passed along and parents not even knowing? Like, we're not teachers, we're not experts. Like, we don't have the state standards sitting in front of us or the national standards. Like, you are the person we look for information as far as our child.
You will kill your child's love of learning and make them disrespect what a true education is if you try to box them in by time limits like they're some kind of idiot. If a person gets their work done, the work is done. Why should they be punished just because they're smart enough to get their work done fast? One of the greatest advantages of homeschooling is that you get back something that all of the richest men in the world combined cannot buy, and that is time. Your child's time is precious, your time is precious, but you get that back with homeschooling. Subjects are determined on consistency and by challenge. And so for us, every single day, the 3 R's were done: reading, writing, and arithmetic. We did the 3 R's every single day, taking very short breaks for holidays or rest or vacation, but we never took more than like a week or two off. And because we did it every single day, our lessons were much shorter because we were consistent with it. And because we did this year round and we were usually way ahead, that meant that whenever they came across a particular concept or a topic that they struggled with, we had the freedom and the luxury of being able to slow down and really go over it and really learn it well so that they could move forward. Now, other subjects like science and history, we had textbooks that we had to get through for that school year. And so I would mark them up by the month that we had to get like a certain amount of work done. So if there was a textbook, I would say we have to be here by September, here by October, here by November, and I would mark it with Post-it notes. And then they knew how much work they had to get done. Now, if they got all their work done, then they got all their work done and they had their time back to be able to focus on other interests and hobbies, hanging out with friends, sports. We had activities almost every single day. Now, I didn't let them go play video games, so please keep that in mind in case there are going to be people who are going to be asking. And by doing this, what you are going to do is you are going to make homeschooling very, very appealing for your children. They are going to be able to get their work done and be able to move on with life and do other things. So you are also going to be raising independent learners. And I also guarantee you that if they go to college, they are going to succeed because they know how to manage their time.